Okay,
Perfect.
awesome. So I went with your suggestion on um, changing back to Dusty shooting the agent instead of Cole.
Yeah, and then it's Dylan, and I was like, oh, that's perfect.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
because when you sent me that message, it clicked in my head. I'm like, yeah, okay. It's like if you're gonna have someone who's dirty, yeah, him.
yeah. Then yeah, it's got to be. It's also someone he knows, and I played off of the old kind of rival dynamic where they're like jabbing at each other because they haven't seen each other in 3 years and they still hate each other.
Yeah,
But he doesn't hate him to the point of death. He can't let him. He can't let he can't let the information out that Kokomo is pregnant. That can't be known by he can't message Cole and tell him that. If he does, she's done, and so is Tom, because he's not going to let it happen, and so Tom's going to get killed too. So
mm-hmm.
the it's still lined up, and I was halfway through the scene and trying to figure out how everything works, and I got stuck. And I'm like, how do how do I incorporate this, um, and still make it make sense further down the line, like, because there was so much dialogue going on there that I had to get rid of some dialogue and move it from him talking to Cole to talking about Cole.
Yeah,
And that there was I don't know why that was so difficult, but the juxtaposition and having the subtle, not even subtle, the clear rivalry there, um, because Cole in that other draft was there during the third and final snake attack,
mm-hmm.
and they had to play off this thing where you kind of see Cole care a little bit,
Yeah,
and so I had to work that into Dylan instead, and where he's more concerned that his driver is injured or whatever.
right.
So he doesn't really care about Dusty, but the 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 bridge there, um, was that I had to make him. I had to focus that into his anger. So none of the dialogue changed as much as the motivation changed, and the juxtaposition of our plan didn't go through. We're not getting paid, that kind of thing, because they gypped them on the shipment, and it had to go to this money isn't going to get to Cole. Cole's going to get mad at me. I'm they're they're and then that goes forward into the rest of the story that was already there, where pay Kokomo can't get paid for this job, and she has to use all of her money to keep her folks from rioting,
Right.
and so she's kind of stuck there. And so where that goes forward is at the marina, in the phone call um, between Dusty and Kokomo, where he spills the beans, as it were. I made that a lot more subtle, and Dylan, being an investigator, he's not fooled at all by like the wordplay he's using,
Yeah.
um, and so he kind of informs Dusty he's got to tell Cole about this stuff, and so um, moving through that that conversation with Kokomo, there became an issue of money, because now Kokomo doesn't have any money, whereas when it was Cole getting shot, she would have ended up with his share,
Right.
and so she would have had money to leave even if Cole disappeared. Well, this time Cole's not disappearing because he's dead. Cole's disappearing because the cops are all over him, because they've got a body and one of his guys.
Yep.
And so they've got their cell phones and they know who Cole is. So he's got to disappear. And so that when I realized that would be happening, I'm like, okay, the rest of the story can keep going in the same line, because all of that makes sense, because the whole part of Cole suddenly kind of disappearing from the main plot makes sense now.
Well, and it makes sense in more than one way, because now you've got Dylan, right? And he's afraid Cole's going to be mad at him. Well, let's just say Cole won't shoot him. He's just dead weight. Shoot him, throw him off in the water somewhere. He comes back with the information about Kokomo. Even if Cole's not willing to get rid of Kokomo, which is not a good decision on Cole's part, really, because then he's got to start from scratch with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
But even if he's not going to get rid of her, that takes his mind off of, holy crap, we got shorted on the money, because now here's this Kokomo situation I have to deal with.
Yeah.
And Dylan can get to Kokomo. So it's like, oh, now I'm still usable. I'm not in as much trouble over this thing, is where Dylan's mind is going. And then Cole disappearing makes complete sense. And if you're going to disappear, really, would you put out a CIA hit on yourself? Would you want it to make it appear like you're dead? If you have the appearance of being dead, nobody's looking for you. Like, from Cole's perspective, he wants to disappear. Why not just put the hit out on himself? Nobody's looking for him now. Kind of relieves the heat off of him for a little bit.
Oh, like move the Kane story to where Cole disappears?
Yeah.
I gotta think about that. There's a lot of timeline shifting there, but I might be able to do that because I've moved the Kane story before, so it's doable. It's just I got to figure that out. But the what I did to solve her money issues there is that I remembered the shipment from Venezuela, and Dusty always says, like, oh, I don't have, you can't take my share. I already got paid. Like, it's not electronic. He's got something that is valuable hidden away somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and she says, I can't disappear like you can. And he said, yeah, you can. You remember those barrels? It's like, you left them on the ship? Like, where else was I going to put them?
Exactly.
And he's like, and he's already got this plan going through his head, and he's just like, listen, I'm not going to need the money. I'm going to be in jail. It's just like, and it's just all, it all works forward, because he's going to be in jail. She needs the money. Okay, the money's available. There you go. Disappear, run away, figure it out. Cole's gone. Cole's gonna be under surveillance and scrutiny, and people are going to try to be hunting him down. So he's not going to be in your hair. You can go anywhere you want.
Yep.
And that moves forward into where they meet up later in Japan, because they have no contact with Cole and they're running out of money.
Well, and see, that's why you move the Kane story up, because how many dirty cops does Kane have working for him? probably countless ones. They're
You mean Cole?
disposable to him. Yeah, Cole.
Yeah.
They're disposable to him at this point. You move the Kane story forward, it's a body double standing on the ship. Like Cole's called in. However, he gets his favor through the CIA. Here's this hit that comes down. He's got a body double standing up on the ship. Kane shoots him, thinking he's shooting his brother, and he's not. Cole gets to disappear.
Mm. Oh. Oh, you mean change the hit entirely?
Yeah.
Oh, I can do that. I can do. Ooh. You're making
And
me
it
think, man.
still
You're making me think.
it still fits Kane's when he says that's part of the reason I killed my brother.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of it is he's still working for the CIA. Orders come in, does what he has to do. So he goes to take out and he's already got motive to take out his brother. If he thinks that Kokomo left him for his brother, there you go. There's half of his motive. Like that comes in and he's raising his hand going, me, I'll go take him out.
Yeah.
You know, he has his reason. But then when Cole finds out that it was Kane, he gets back at him by having him shot in the back of the head. Like tit for tat going on there.
Oh. So, wait a second. So he calls the hit out on himself.
Yep.
And then he learns about it, and then oh man, that makes it even darker because if you're just trying to disappear and you fake your death, that's fine. But if you fake your death and then you find out the person that was on the other side of faking your death was your own brother, it's just like, that's personally painful. Like, he didn't know that he betrayed him immediately. He figured it out.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay,
Like,
so there's more to these two going on because imagine the betrayal. From where I see it, Kane has worked for Cole in the past. He knows him. He knows Kokomo. They work together. Kane says, I really want to get out of this business. His brother gets him a job with the CIA. And then what does his own brother, Cole's own brother, what does he do? He comes to carry out the hit against him. And Cole's going, like, everything I've done for you and this is how you repay me? So it's like, okay, well, we'll take care of that. Like, Cole's not a good guy, but in the end, his own brother betraying him after he tried to help him out, it's like, yeah. You know what and Cole's oblivious to the fact that Kane thinks that Kokomo left him for him.
Yeah. And the hit in Kane's own house, the guy that shoots him in the back of the head.
Well, that's a big tit for tat because Kane supposedly shot Cole on his own ship. That's on his front porch, you know? So that's like, oh, okay, I'll make sure it happens in your house. We're going to make this personal.
Yeah. Man. I gotta figure out that part too. That's gonna be great. So going through your notes right after we talked, you finished reading the book after we had that video chat.
Yeah, I had time.
and you said that the ending coming back around to the beginning, you really liked that.
Yeah, because most books I read the prologue, it's just like almost immediately after, or no more than 5 chapters in, the prologue makes sense. This one, it's just like that prologue still dangling out there until you get to the very end and it's like, oh man, like, wow. And then the lizard man asking the big existential question of when does it move from self-defense to murder?
Hmm.
It's like the whole white coats and the first and the exile. I was like, sounds like he's talking like a post-apocalyptic world here, but then it's like, no, this is an order of these genetically altered beings underground, and the
Yeah.
white coats are just the lab people, the doctors. And I'm like, oh, that makes so much more sense now, because my mind would go back to that prologue, like, okay, where's this going to fit in? I'm not seeing it yet. And then it was like, boom, it was right there. I was like, man, that was
Yeah.
brilliant. I loved not getting that until the very end, because then it just leaves you wondering. And it makes you want to read through the whole thing, because you're like, all right, where's this piece fit in? And then you get to the end and it's like, beautiful.
Well, thank you
That
very
was a
much.
work of genius.
Thank you. Thank you. That's so rewarding to hear, because I was I was worried about how people would feel about it, because I had done the kind of like kind of the old style speaking, or like a biblical story. That's the kind of narrative it goes through, that that form of old storytelling, biblical, what it was, it's kind of almost poetic.
Yeah.
um and when I wrote it out, and it's in Indian, that it was translated. Did you read, um did you read the byline of who translated it?
Yeah, I did. I did. That's why I was like, this seems like post apocalyptic, almost like somebody's reading from a text that was written however long ago. And it's like, yeah. It kind of
Yeah.
reminded, have you seen the Divergent series of movies, or read the books? There's like Divergent, Insurgent, and Allegiant.
Oh no, I haven't read the series. My parents really loved the movie, I think,
The
but I
movies are
didn't.
good.
I didn't watch it.
That's kind of what it reminded me of. It's like this new world order that's, post apocalyptic, but then
Hmm.
you get to the very end and it's like, okay, this post apocalyptic world does not fit in with the rest of what I'm reading, because the rest is like, okay, everything's modern here, and then you get to that and you're like, of course it would seem that way to them. It's like,
Hmm.
oh man.
Yeah, but then,
And then you read it, it's like, it's not post apocalyptic, it's almost like pre biblical history for them. So, like, they're trying to work through all these things before any biblical history, like Abraham and Moses and the rest of them that had never seen God. So it's like they're working through that as a group of beings that are not outside in the world. It's like, man,
yeah, yeah.
it,
This
it
is
was, it was, yeah,
it's written by them. Um, it's written by them in the midst of the chaos of what happens afterwards. Uh, after the book, because there's, and that's in like the weird naming of the poetic thing, and the wrath of the stars, and like the blind age. It's just like you get flashes from nuclear bombs and people go blind, and um there there's it's for them, it's their origin story.
yeah,
This is where they begin. And um there's the other half to their culture, which is biblical, because the church that they leave Dusty in at the end, that church goes to that bunker, that facility underground, to hide from the fallout. Um, and so you've got creatures that don't know what's going on, that just got visited by who they would consider their great guru, and and then foreigners that come in, that are very nice and helpful and have these wise men with their own books of knowledge. And so it would make sense that the kind of biblical language would go into their own history.
Right. And that's, yeah, that was a huge part of it. I was like, oh man. And then the fact that you didn't actually allow Dusty to stop what was going to happen, like with all the nuclear blasts and everything, he didn't get the chance to stop that.
Yeah,
It's like
because it was
at the
way
end of the
bigger
story, the good guys don't win. The bad guys did win the battle. The war's not over, but they won that battle. And it's like that, yeah.
yeah, but it's a I think thematically it's called a Pyrrhic victory, where you win, but you've lost so much that you might as well have never have fought, or you wish you had never fought. Um, it's kind of that scenario where two countries go to war and they slaughter everyone, and one person is left on one side. He won, but he's alone.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of a scenario is what popped up, because his nuke being the signal told the rest of the folks that are in control, okay, time to launch. And all of this stuff goes haywire. Well, at the same time, it's too early, and the folks that are working behind the scenes don't have time to get into their own bunkers and hide and protect themselves and gather all of their power. So on one hand, they get to have their new world, but they don't get to be in charge.
Yeah. And the innocent people down in that bunker didn't die.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's like he still ekes out at least a small victory out of that.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what his goal. That's what his goal was. Is like this is going to happen. I don't have the power to stop any of this from happening, but what I can change is the order at which it happens.
Right.
And so I can stop them from ruling, but I can't stop them from ruining everything.
Yeah. And so his aunt was part of that too, right?
Yeah, that's what she was hinting at when at the jail visit.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That everything's going to change.
Yeah. Well, that's what I assumed. And then, I don't know. Dusty clearly states, like I didn't realize it until I was thinking back on it, but he clearly states that he knows that he's not going to be able to stop all the events from happening. But he does say to the driver, I'm not going to let a Luddite like you be the one in power. So like already in his mind, he's like, okay, I can't stop it all, but I can maybe stop these people from attaining power. And if I can do that, that's good enough.
Yeah. And then moving forward, the one person who has any accumulation of power is the one guy that wanted to change things in the right way that can't. And that's Bill. And so, and Bill, this disgruntled member of this secret society that's ruining everything, is like, why did you let them do it? But at the same time, he's like, well, I'm at least in a position where I can help now.
Yeah.
So that's the really weird thing about Bill, that when you were bringing up, like, there's something going on with him. He's being very sneaky about all of this stuff, and it's like, well, he has to be. Yeah, because like imagine knowing these people personally and trying to hide things from them.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think anybody else working with him knows what he was up to either. I think Dusty knew there was something off about him, but he couldn't quite tell what it was. Probably figured it out later, but I don't think anybody else working for him knows what's going on. Maybe Gustav, but even that's debatable. Like,
Yeah, because Gustav's been with him since like the beginning.
yeah, but he may still be thinking that Bill is technically the good guy in the scenario, you know. Because like here's Bill's dad who did a lot of great things for Gustav, and here's his son, so he's probably just as good of a person in his mind. So, you know, like Gustav knows some of the goings on, but I don't think he knows truly everything that Bill has been up to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And for his flaws, Bill tries to do the right thing most of the time. Like he really does. But, you know, there's still some things about him that other people don't know.
and you can you can see his major motivation for secrecy in his chat with Garrett in the chamber when he walks through the decontamination chamber and gets into his isolation chamber and sits across from him, drenched in in hydrogen peroxide, sitting there like, we're gonna have this talk. Like, and he tells him the story of the two guys that work together, and one day he said that uh, he and his wife fought, and he struck his wife one time, but she had struck back, so it was like a mutual thing. It's like, yeah, but telling that story made his partner uncomfortable with having him around women.
Yeah.
And so telling that story ruined their relationship over time because it slowly started eking away. And so he said,
like,
there's certain things you don't, there's just certain things you don't tell people.
Right. And it's like he's saying to him at that moment, if I tell you everything about me, that's going to be the end of it.
Yeah, you're gonna want out. You're gonna tell more people. It's just like there's things that I need to keep from you to make everything work.
Right.
And it's kind of the dirty open secret about being in power is that some things you just don't tell the populace.
Yeah. And that's very true. But I don't know. I have my reservations about him being the nexus of power at this moment. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and the kind of comforting thing about that is he doesn't know either.
Yeah.
He knows he knows he wants to help. He doesn't know how to do it all. That's why he's got to grab all these people from different professions and like, okay, I know you know how to do this. I know you know how to do this. Just do it. Don't involve me.
Yeah.
Just do your job, and if you don't do your job, you're fired. It's that kind of thing. And that's what happens to the assistant that screws stuff up. He ends up removing him from his position of working with people and putting him into the lower areas, working with the bioreactor in the sublevel. It's just like, listen, if you keep working with people, you're gonna mess stuff up, and more people are gonna get hurt because you're not taking this fully seriously. And it originally, I had something kind of darker planned for that particular person, but it just seemed like more of a teaching moment than doing much else. So what else what's your thoughts on um, the on Dusty at the end?
Well, I was a little sad that he was left in limbo, like he was dead. But then I thought, no, surely not. Like, he can't be dead. Um, but like I kept saying, he's one of those people who's always trying to do the right thing. And so for me, seeing everything that he did from like the moment that he takes the mission in India to its final conclusion, I was like, he did the right thing every step through the way. Even as far as the snake bite and still being able to make it to the church to warn everybody. Like that whole scenario, it's like through everything, he did the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like as much as he pushed Tom to be that kind of person, it finally clicked with him. Like everything that had happened to him, like he goes into this whole program, like everything he does, it's always about helping somebody else. But through helping those other people, he got the push to be the person that he needed. And I found it very fitting that that's where he wound up as a church, given the fact that his father's a chaplain. And it seems like, he probably left the faith earlier on after his mother died, or maybe even before then. I'm not sure. But it's very fitting that that's where he winds up after doing the things that he's done. Like he's at least partially the Christ archetype.
Yeah, I wanted to I really wanted to model sacrifice in Dusty, but I didn't want to do it in a very traditional way. I I wanted it to be um, a self-learning experience, and that's why Dusty's kind of in the state that he's in, because he's not done. There's more to him afterwards, where I see a lot of self-sacrifice stories, um, where it's a machine or someone who is ultimately childlike, and then they grow and become more of a person, and then they sacrifice themselves. And it feels like in those scenarios, it's almost that they could have done that sacrifice thing without learning all of the things that they done,
Right.
like like um like Data in Star Trek Nemesis. That's why his sacrifice in the end of that movie doesn't feel right, because in at any point in his journey he would have done the same thing, because he knows he's a machine,
Yeah.
and he would have saved Picard. Like that's it. Like there's no question of whether or not he would have done that. He would have done it, and him becoming more human had nothing to do with whether or not he would have sacrificed himself. He was
Yeah.
very logical.
So, have you seen the TV series Breaking Bad?
Yes, and I couldn't get through it. It was I couldn't sit through it long enough to watch his life fall apart. It was just too depressing for me.
So,
I only
what did
got
you?
3 episodes in.
Okay. Well, the further along in the series you get, um, this character Walter White, even though he's doing a lot of bad stuff, every single step of the way he's trying to help that kid that was working with him.
Mhm.
And in the beginning, he's doing it to take care of his family after he supposedly is going to die from cancer, which, spoiler alert, he doesn't. But anyhow, every step of the way, he keeps doing stuff for this kid, trying to help guide him along. And then at the end, when this kid could have went to prison for working at this giant meth lab, instead, Walter goes through touching every piece of equipment, and then he gets killed in the end
Mhm.
by, I don't know, DEA or somebody, but he gets killed in the end. But he's putting his handprints over everything that kid did so that he doesn't wind up spending the rest of his life in prison. Because they know about him, but they don't know about the kid.
Yeah.
So he's the one who keeps doing, or at the very end, still does the right thing. he's like, he's still a bad guy, but you want to root for him because it's like you can see that little bit that's still just like helping somebody throughout the whole show. That's who Dusty reminds me. Because it's like he's still doing all this bad stuff, right? And he reminds himself, like, okay, Tom is more than just a thief. Like, there's something special about this kid. Got to keep him alive. Then along comes Garrett, and you can tell kind of begrudgingly, he's like, all right, got to help this kid now. And it's like all these things that he does, it's like he's still got that bit of him that you think is doing things for the wrong reason, and yet every step of the way it's helping somebody. So that's who Dusty kind of reminds me of. And then if we're going to go with that show, there was like a shady kind of lawyer that they used in there, and his name was Saul, and his catchphrase was "Better call Saul." That's who Bill reminds me of.
Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of shady, but the Saul character has his own show, and it's just like, well, I started to watch some of that, and I felt like there was a more relatable story in him, because he had to balance his lawyer act with the way he really is.
Yeah.
And it's very uncomfortable, because you could see his court persona spilling into his real life, and it's not healthy like that. And it gets to the point where he's got to ruin his own brother in court, and it's just like, how do you get into that kind of scenario? And that's what that show kind of depicts. Mm-hmm. But the relationship between Garrett and Dusty, the way I tried to depict that was looking at it from Garrett's point of view. Is this guy is so annoying, and that's get when you go through a character analysis and you try to pick out what aspects of someone are in certain characters, like in the Space Trilogy, you can tell who Tolkien is in C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy, is that he was Ransom, because he was a linguist or something. But I had put a lot of aspects of myself into Dusty, but whenever it was brought up as, okay, so who are you in the story, I would say Garrett, because Garrett is kind of that side of me that is kind of fed up with a lot of stuff and just wants to get by, and is tired all the time, and and is easily annoyed. Where I guess Dusty is the part of me that just wants to help out people and doesn't know exactly how to do it, but hopes it's working. The dynamic between those two kind of confuses me sometimes, because I don't know where it's going. So did you see anything in the way that they interacted?
Yeah, and for me, it was like Garrett's just this, I don't want to say it, but I know Dusty's young, but he's thinking of Dusty as like an older gentleman, an older soul, and he's annoyed by him.
Well, they're the same age.
I know.
Or at least close.
He's annoyed by him, though. He's like, oh my God, it's this guy. Just like, shut up, dude. But then the more time he spends around him, the closer that bond gets, even to the point where you see Garrett do the right thing at the end. Like, yeah, it cost him his life, but he did the right thing. And it's like, in his mind, it's like trying to think, like, what would Dusty do in this situation? And he already knows the answer. Because it's like, well, he could have opted out of this program, but he didn't. He followed me. He went through this whole thing with me. He almost died going through the treatment with me. It's like, did all these things that culminated in me being here. And this is my moment to do something in return. So he sacrifices himself. And it's like, you don't get that glimpse until that point in the book. Before then, he's still just constantly annoyed with him. Like, this dude's weird. He just needs to shut up. So that dynamic was always there, but it didn't. I liked that it was subtle. It didn't have to be explained. It's like just reading through their characters, you could see it. You don't have to state it explicitly for me to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, that helps a lot, because the what would Dusty do thing was kind of it felt like a cop out for me, because then I could write the action sequence in a way that I was used to writing, which is very chaotic, of like everything is happening at the same time. Because realistically speaking, in an action scenario, everything happens at the same time and it's usually over in 5 seconds.
But it feels like a lifetime.
Yeah. But the way that scene kind of dragged on, it was putting Garrett in a situation where he had to put his friends in harm's way again. The same friends that he lost last time. And he knew he had to be the catalyst for it. And the what would Dusty do was, he's nuts. This is a crazy situation. Crazy is the only thing that's going to work here. And that's kind of the through line for this book, is that when everything breaks down, it's the crazy people that usually put things back together.
Yep.
And the situation in that bunker, or under the mountain, as I would say, the situation under the mountain, I just realized it's like The Hobbit. He has to take the plutonium out of the warhead. He has to grab the Arkenstone and remove it and get it out of Smaug's hoard. And he's the thief, but he doesn't escape. He has to help someone else escape.
Right. And so, yeah, I just, when that scene came about and he's talking to everyone, I'm like, he's not going to make it out.
Yeah. And he said, don't argue with me.
Yeah. I mean, that's the first thing that came to mind. It's like, oh, he's not going to make it out. This is his moment.
Yeah. But again, his story isn't over. He has things going on where his story isn't over. He's got friends left behind. He's got Phil, who watched the guy walk out of the cave covered in dust, staring at him saying he stopped. I don't know why he stopped. It's just like he saved my life. It's like he stopped to save your life.
Yep.
It's just like why would he care? Why would he care about you? Why? And that's the question that runs through Phil's head the whole time is why? Why? He just came back. My friend just came back. Why is he gone?
Well, that whole, it's not really a cop out, the whole what would Dusty do, because if you are a little bit of both of the characters, then stopping and asking yourself, what would the better half of me think about the way I'm acting and feeling right now when you're feeling like a Garrett? Like that's a question to ask yourself. Like what would this other half of me do? And it's like, okay, well, I would do this. Okay, I need to get up and do that. So it's a good question to ask. I don't feel like you left anything out there by doing it that way.
Well, no, I'm just saying it was a cop out at the time.
Oh yeah,
it works now.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was just thinking, oh well, I'm just gonna do the action sequence in that kind of slapdash, everything's happening at the same moment thing. But
okay, I got it.
Looking back at it and seeing how it works thematically, it all lines up.
Yeah.
With what Dusty taught him, which is think about what's actually going to happen when this is over. Don't think about what you're going to do next. Think about what's going to happen when it's done. And like that was the scenario when the bus got hit by the semi. Is we're not going to make it out of this. We have to make this better. And so what does he do? He shoots he shoots he shoots the guy that was trying to help them out, because he knew Cole's got all these guys, and this guy's probably another dirty law enforcement person or something. And so it's just like, listen, we're not going to make it out. A semi truck is not going to outrun a helicopter. This entire thing is stupid. Him trying to break me out of jail is a dumb idea. I didn't want to be broken out.
Yeah. And I love the way he said, well, I would have went along with it if it was a better plan. You know, just like, these guys are stupid. Which makes sense for him to say, because he's the guy that comes up with the plans, right? And it's like, okay, this is just half crazy enough that it might work, but no, it's not going to.
Mm-hmm.
And he's taking a 50-50 gamble, like, we're already on our way to be executed, but maybe we can get a pardon if we take out a dirty cop that just, rammed the bus and killed these people. It's like, if we take out the dirty cop, maybe they'll pardon us. If not, we're going to die anyhow. So it's like, maybe you take less of a gamble if it's like you're doing life in prison and they have the opportunity to execute you instead of letting you live out your life in prison. But if you're already on the way to where you're going to be executed, it's like, why not take a crapshoot? Why not kill this? Why not send a message to Cole that says, I know what you're up to?
Yeah. And leave me alone.
Yeah. Leave me alone. Let me die.
Yeah.
Because even if he goes with the guys, he goes with them. Cole's going to kill him anyhow. Right? So it's like, it does him no good. He's going to die either way. It's like, well, I'm not going to let this Cole fella kill me. I'm going to let the state do it.
Yeah. And until his aunt shows up, he has no plan. He's fine. He's perfectly okay. Mm-hmm. And that culminates in his conversations with his dad, is that he's going through the motions of acceptance, and
yep.
and his dad is worried about him because it's like, why do you look happier every time I see you? It's just like, I know when I'm gonna die. Who can say that?
Right. I've got my death date. Y'all can stamp it on the stone. I'm done for. You know? It's like, I can see why he said that, because how many people can say, I know when I'm going to die?
Yeah, yeah, and he came to himself, but the opportunity opened by his aunt is like, well, if I die, that if I die, I die. If if she can get me out of here somehow, that sounds like fun. It's just like
Yep.
he wins either way
Right?
when you get into a scenario like that. And that's that's the Christian story of the martyrs, is like, you kill me, but I'll be with the Lord. It's just like, I win. It doesn't matter what you do to me, I win.
Yep.
and and the only pain there, the only loss, um, is from his dad's side, is that he's like, all I can do is make this easier for you. That's all that Dusty can do from his scenario, is just make it easier on his dad.
Right.
And 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 then he loses his second mentor, with Leonard, who taught him contentment on death row. And he's he and he's put into a scenario where he has to go through this other guy's life, and you don't read any of that. And it's a book that shouldn't be published, um, until everybody who's involved with the book is gone.
Right.
And it's like, what does that mean? It's like, well, I want my story to go on, but this implicates other people, so don't read it. And there's a subtext in there. I don't know if you picked up on that, but don't publish it until his brother is dead. What does that tell you?
That his brother's implicated in it too.
And Leonard took the rap. He took the whole thing onto him, and he so that his brother could live his own life. And it's just that's a story in a story that you're not reading, from somebody who you meet for a couple of chapters. And it's another one of those unwritten subtexts. That was the only one that I really had a hidden background to. Like, when you told me Kokomo's thing, I had no idea what happened to her when she was a child. But Leonard, I knew what happened to him. And him coming to terms with death, and then telling him, the visits are not for you, the visits are for them.
Yeah, he reminds him of that.
Smile, everything you do is for someone else in here.
Yep.
Because we're done. So the only thing you can do is help other people at that point.
Yep.
And it really puts everything in perspective like that. It's just like, well, everybody's heading in that direction. All you can do is help other people.
That's true.
And that's also kind of reflected in the last meals. It's just like, listen, I just want some chips and a water. I don't want you to waste a huge meal on someone who's about to die. That's pointless. Like, or no, that was Garrett. Dusty got a muffin. It's like, listen, I'm just gonna have a muffin. Just one. That's it. You know, it's like I don't need a lobster bisque or something. Like people do these crazy meals. I heard somebody got a McDonald's Happy Meal one time. It's like, see, that's a proper last meal.
Yeah.
Like you're not wasting much. You're experiencing joy before tragedy, and it's cathartic. It's like there you go. But you know, then you hear people having like 4-course meals and stuff like that and completely gorging themselves. It's like, now we know why you're here.
Yep.
And I talked to Shane the other day, and I mentioned a book. I think I misquoted the title. It's called, I think it's Too Mean to Die, and it's a guy that he was in jail for a while, and then he got out and he got saved and started to minister to folks in jail, and he was running people through forgiveness, and they had to do a little project where you write down everybody who's wronged you, and you got to go through that list in your mind and forgive every single one of them, and people wouldn't do it.
It's too difficult.
And he noticed that the guys that wouldn't do it had been in jail multiple times, over and over and over again. They just keep getting back into jail, and it's because of their resentment. They just can't forgive. They can't let anything go. It's like, no, you don't know what they've done to me. It's just like, none of that matters. Let it go. And you can be free, literally.
Yep. And there's plenty of people out there that don't want to listen to that.
Yeah. Yeah. So and I've got friends who were in similar situations, and I wanted them to tell me their stories, but I only heard like the first half of one of them. But hopefully, like even if somebody in jail kind of reads this, that some of that would get through. I think one aspect that I haven't fully put through is, I might have, but I don't know if I have, is forgiveness. Because I think there's a part that I don't know if I took it out. I didn't take it out. It's why you were confused about the agent line, because it was when they were all in the plane, and Dusty says something about just like, you know, dwelling on this stuff isn't going to do me any good, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I need to rewrite that, but for the longest time I kept trying to get rid of that section, and I don't know why. But it's not that I needed to get rid of it, it's that I needed to recontextualize it. It needed to be better. And I think I've got some, I now that I know that is the idea behind that one, I need to solidify that idea, because forgiveness is like the cornerstone of all of this. It's just like, well, how do you not let things bother you? Like, well, you've got to forgive, and especially yourself with a lot of stuff. Like you've got to get over yourself.
Yep.
It's like, how do you receive forgiveness how do you receive forgiveness if you can't give it? It's just it's a stopped up loop.
Well, I'll leave you with this before I have to go and get ready for bed.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Dusty went through. He had to forgive himself for not being able to do anything at his mother's death before he could forgive his father for that same, for his mother's death. There was some forgiveness he had to extend to his father, but he couldn't do that until he could forgive himself for not being able to do anything. I think that came through very, very clearly.
In which conversation?
Well, they didn't have a conversation about it. It was just like, it was so easy for him, for when he was back in town, for her to say, call your dad, and then he does, and you know all this like back history of when his mom died, and there's still this tension because he was gone. Everyone thought he was dead. He was gone.
Yeah.
And it was so easy for him to forgive his father, but he had forgiven himself for what had happened too. So
Yeah. Because I think the last time they had spoken, he was in college, and that's in the poem of what was said in the quad, and a quad's usually in the middle of a college.
Yep.
And he regretted that conversation, and right at the end of that poem he says, I now believe in God. And like he's come around in not only forgiving his dad or moving on from his from his guilt, and coming back around and seeing finally seeing all of the lessons that his dad was trying to impart to him in all these Bible verses that he was spouting off, because that was the way he was trying to help Dusty cope, is he kept trying to help him using Bible verses and preaching this stuff, and all Dusty wanted was a conversation. And so, and because of his pain, he couldn't absorb any of the scripture. He couldn't hear it. His ears were closed. And it was only afterwards, after he writes that poem, when he was just like, listen, I get it now. It's come around. And that's also when he starts doing good, because he's like, I've seen the light on this stuff. Like, I'm still a criminal. I'm still stuck here, but I'm going to try to do my best to get out of this entire line of tragedy.
Yep.
Man. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Like, I didn't realize so much of how that all tied in till you brought that up, that it was just his basic relationship after he came back, of being able to talk to his father, that said everything was okay. Like, I didn't realize how okay it was. I thought that it was still, I thought there was still something kind of deeper, darker going on there, but there was, looking back on it, it's a lot more lighthearted than I had initially put it, because his dad was very open in saying, we don't have to talk about this. And Dusty says, yeah, I want to talk about it. It's fine. Everything's good. I've moved on.
And that was like, he calls him, they have lunch together, they're going to visit his brother. Like, I'm like, at first I'm thinking, this is too easy. And then I'm like, but it's not, because Dusty forgave himself for not being able to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, this makes perfect sense now. Mm-hmm. He forgave himself for that so he could forgive his father.
Yeah. But then it happens again with Slips, and so he kind of, those feelings resurface and he collapses again. And so he has to rise through that again, and then forgive himself again. And then, and that rise and fall keeps happening with his self-flagellation over these things. But that relationship with his father was healed. And so he could get help through the rest of that, asking his dad for help and counseling and things like that. Yep. No matter who he loses.
Yep. Well, I feel like that's a good place to end it.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
But yeah. Until next time.
Yep.
All right. See you, bro.